I'd like to call the Metro Planning Commission meeting to order and ask people to take a seat. Our first item is to adopt today's agenda or adopt with changes. Is there a motion or a comment?
Staff would recommend that item number C be moved to the end of the agenda.
Number C. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of moving item C to the end of the agenda, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Thank you. Is there a motion for approval or otherwise regarding the May 22nd meeting minutes?
So move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
If you're in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, say no. All right. At this time, we'll recognize any council members who would like to speak at the beginning, although you can, of course, speak during the agenda item you're most interested in. I'm not sure I see anyone. Are there council members who wish to speak at this point? Okay. I think our next item is an update on Nashville Next. So you're on. Hold on. Is it on or not?
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Greg Claxton with the Planning Department with your regular update on Nashville Next. As a reminder, we're just getting into a new phase of the project where we're starting to actually make policy decisions. For the past year and a half, we've been asking people what they'd like for the future, and we're now starting to say, all right, there are some tough choices to make. We need to make, understand some trade-offs between different ways we could grow. For my update this afternoon, I'd like to do something a little bit different. We're hoping that all of the people here patiently waiting for their agenda item will take a moment listening to my talk and actually participate in Nashville Next. We've mentioned before that one of our new tools for this round is an ability to participate by text message. So if you have a phone, I'd like you to go ahead and bring it out, even if you're not interested in participating, and let us know what you'd like for the future. What we're going to do is look through 4 different steps. The first is, in a moment, I'm going to lay out 12 issues that relate to how we grow in the future. I'd like for you to text the letter of the issue most important to you. We'll respond back with a recommendation on which of the futures that we're looking at is best for your issue. And then as I explain what those futures are, if you could let us know, does that seem like a reasonable way for us to grow, or is it not what you're looking for? And then we'll send out a few follow-up questions so we understand who we're hearing from, zip code, that kind of thing. So these are our 12 issues that we're looking at. If any of these are important to you, please let us know. Send us to the phone number at the top of the screen, 270-4565. Just the first letter. Some of the things that we're looking at: access to services, kind of things for your daily needs, access to parks, demand for water and sewer and water and sewer infrastructure, economic development, greenway access, housing affordability, opportunities for children and youth, preservation of residential character, preservation of natural features, transportation spending, transit access, and walkability. I'm going to leave these up on the screen for a moment while I talk through what we're looking at with the futures to give people a chance to think about it. What we're presenting with our futures, looking out 25 years, is basically a story of how we grow. A story based in where we locate new residents, where we locate new jobs, and what infrastructure we create to support where people are locating. A few common elements between the futures. First, they're all dealing with the same growth numbers. We didn't want one scenario, one future to be a high growth future and one to be a low growth, and people pick based on that. So, how much we're growing in each future is held constant. Second, we're starting with the places and patterns identified in the community plans. All of the futures, kind of build on that rather than creating an entirely new pattern in different places. And then the last thing is we try to treat some of the key flashpoints, contentious issues over the last few years in Nashville the same. And so none of the futures identify additional changing entitlements or activity centers on Bells Bend or the fairgrounds. And all show some kind of frequent transit service on West End. Again, the idea here is we don't want people picking a future based on just one thing, but rather the overall vision that it represents. To give you a sense of what these futures look like, I'm putting up maps of current conditions in Nashville today. We take two basic parts. One is employment. Up here on the screen, you can see in shades of pink where employment is located in Nashville right now. These are generalized, so we don't get into what's going on in my parcel, what's going on my street, but a general view of where is most employment happening in Nashville. You can see light pink to the northwest, but then concentrations around downtown, East Nashville, Southeast, and Antioch. And then the same thing for population in blue, from light blue again to the northwest to dark blue in the urban core within the USD, and then down to Antioch as well. The futures that I'm going to show in just a moment are a little different from this. They use the same color scheme, the same color coding, but we combine them together to show, when you see population and employment together, the pink and the blue, shades of purple, where you have kind of more mixed use areas. This is current conditions where we're currently built out. The next maps are going to show just where new growth would happen. So we highlight the differences. So the first one is what we call business as usual. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but towards the northwest and then around the edge of the county, there's a lot of blue. So we're expecting to see mostly continued residential growth around the outer edge. But then as you get to downtown, north of downtown, and then southeast, a lot of overlap of denser residences and dense employment centers. When we first started working with these futures, we expected the business as usual to be a very sprawling scenario. But what our model came up with was something that actually captures a lot of the intent of the community plans right now. You do see a fair amount of dispersed residential development, but also a lot of infill and redevelopment in key areas. We think this actually captures what the actual trend is in Nashville pretty well right now. The last part of the scenario, in addition to the people and the jobs, is what we call our frequent transit network. What's the network where you could go out and get on a bus, or a train, going every 10 or 15 minutes. And that's the lines that are shown up there. The darkest lines, the black lines, are our regional service and stuff running in dedicated lanes, including bus rapid transit on West End. And then the red lines are BRT Light, like service that exists on Murfreesboro and Gallatin right now. All of these are very downtown focused in a hub and spoke model. Our second feature, called Downtown and Pikes, is similar to that. It takes that existing transit vision and then adds in a few more spokes to get even more people the ability to get downtown. As we were working with this, we started thinking through, well, how do you make this work? If your concern is getting people to jobs, you start needing to look at doubling down on downtown to make it even more of an employment hub than it is today, even more going on. And so we started looking at expanding the footprint of downtown, north to Metro Center, within kind of neighborhoods close by, Midtown, and then to the southeast to some industrial land. And then we started looking at along the pikes, along those transit lines, developing those with somewhat dense residential, 1 to 6 stories, but then also retail and services. And here the idea is, again, people are mostly, new homes are mostly locating along the pikes so that people can get to downtown. The next future is what we call centers with adjacent infill. Again, downtown continues to grow. Again, like downtown with with Pikes, we're sort of starting to pull development out from the northwest. But what we start trying to do here is provide crosstown connectors for transit service, so that if you need to get from one part of the county to another by transit, you don't have to go through downtown. And what that allows us to do is to start seeing more intense activity centers scattered throughout the county, where you have a significant number of jobs that you don't have to get to downtown to access. Because these places, if they're successful, will be higher rent, more dense, we also wanted to match these with kind of nearby residential infill within about a quarter mile of some of these darker spots on the map, where you say in established residential neighborhoods, we're going to encourage, low-scale infill development, whether that's townhomes, cottage courts, or even subdividing an existing large building into 2 or 3 smaller units. Those are our 3 futures that we have that we're looking at. Earlier, when we presented to Planning Commission, we were looking at 4. 2 of them came up very similar, so we combined them. By now, for anyone who texted us, you should have gotten a response back.
I texted the ones that were important to me, and I got a response saying sorry, invalid response.
Okay, let me take a look afterwards.
Correct.
Okay. So the key thing is if you send just one letter, it'll respond. Hopefully, I've given you a little bit of a sense of what we're looking at with these futures, so you can let us know if that sounds like the right direction or the wrong direction. As we go out to the public over the next 3 months, we know that not everyone is going to be able to, is comfortable reading the maps that we've produced. So we're looking for other ways to visualize what we have as well. One thing that we have is in 3 different areas throughout the county, we're trying to visualize what does it look like if we build out this way. So this would be a smaller center in a more suburban area along a major route. You can see it starts to build up a little bit more at the center of that. We've also got a 3D visualization of where new jobs and people locate. Here you can see the spike downtown. And then, like I said, we're starting for the next 3 months. We're going to be taking input on all of these. We have 3 events that we're doing this summer. The first one is on Saturday at Musicians Corner at Centennial Park. We have 25 lounges, open houses that we're doing throughout the county. The first one is on Monday at Edmondson Pike Branch Library. We should have an online survey available next week. We have 4 town halls on particular topics. The first one is June 24th on housing and gentrification. Thank you, and I can take questions.
Are there any questions for our staff?
Well, I was just going to say, I think if you go online, you can get more information about each of those scenarios to learn sort of how I think we put in how it would affect these different futures. And so you can sort of see, well, if I choose this, then it's going to swing things this way. If I choose that, it's going to swing the other way. And that helps set priorities.
Right.
So there's a lot more information online if you're interested before you vote, or when you tell other people to vote, they can learn more online.
That's right.
Any other comments from commissioners or questions? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I think this commission all knows how hard the staff is working. I actually heard a presentation at 7:30 yesterday morning. So they're going from very early to very late, I believe, as they help the community understand what's going on here. Okay, I think this brings us down to items for deferral and withdrawal. Bob?
Yes, there are 3 items for deferral. The first item is item number 1, 2014Z-015TX-001. This is on page 5 of the agenda. This is a request to amend the zoning code to modify the conditions pertaining to construction, demolition, landfills, and recycling facilities. The request is to defer to the June 26th Planning Commission meeting. The second item for deferral is item number 6 on page 6 of the agenda, 2014 SP-041-001. This is the 1212 Hawkins Street SP. This is a request to rezone from RM20 to SP residential zoning for properties located at 1212 Hawkins Street, 1119 and 1121 Sigler Street to permit up to 45 multifamily units. And the request is to defer to the July 24th Planning Commission meeting. And the last item for deferral is item 7 on page 6 of the agenda, 2014Z-037PR-001. This is Ashland City Highway, a request to rezone from RS15 to RM9 zoning for property located at Ashland City Highway unnumbered, and the request is to defer indefinitely.
So for persons in our audience, these have been suggested for deferral in conversations, I take it, from the proponents and staff?
These are, yes, the applicants on all 3 of these have requested the deferrals.
So that means if we approve a motion to defer, we will not discuss it today, but there will be continuing opportunity for discussion, assuming all parties want to, with the community and with everyone else. Okay. Is there a motion regarding these 3 items for deferral?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, vote aye. Aye. All opposed, vote no. So those 3 items are deferred. And you're presenting the consent agenda too?
Yes.
Okay.
Before I get to the consent agenda, as information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. And the next is the consent agenda. As noticed to the public, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. So as I read the following cases into the consent agenda, please raise your hand if you would like this removed from the consent agenda. If you would like one of the items removed from the consent agenda. The first item on the consent agenda is on page 5 of the agenda, item number 2, 2014 SP-022-001. This is the 2324 Riverside Drive SP. This is a request to rezone from RS 7.5 to SP zoning for property located at 2324 Riverside Drive to permit up to 7 detached single-family dwelling units. Staff is recommending approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions. And I will point out on that one that the applicant had changed the request from 8 units to 7 units since the staff report went out, so that is reflected on the agenda. Staff is recommending approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions. Item number 4, 2014 S-084-001, 300 Tillman. This is a request for final plat approval to create 3 lots on property located at 300 Tillman Lane, zoned R6. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Item number 5, 2014 SP-038-001, Lot 3, the Shops of Ridgeview. This is a request to rezone from SP-A to SP-C, Auto SP to Commercial SP, for property located at Bell Road unnumbered to permit a restaurant. Staff recommends approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions. Next item is on page 7. This is item number 8, 2014 Z-040PR-001. This is a request to rezone from OR20 to MUNA. Zoning for property located at 1128 3rd Avenue South, and staff recommends approval. Next item is item number 9, 109-81P-001, the Rivergate Square planned unit development. This is a request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for a portion of the Rivergate Square planned unit development for property located at 2001 Gallatin Pike to permit the development of a restaurant and retail space. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Item number 10 on page 7 of the agenda, 2014 S-105-001, This is the Lovejoy Court concept plan. This is a request for concept plan approval to create 4 lots on property located at Lovejoy Court unnumbered, zoned RS 3.75. Staff recommends approval. Item number 11, 2014 S-100-001, Robert Hendricks subdivision. This is a request for final plat approval to create 3 lots on property located at Charlotte Pike unnumbered, zoned R40. Staff recommends approval. And then under other business on page 8, item number 13, employee contract amendment for Jennifer Carlett. Staff recommends approval. Item number 14, contract between the Nashville-Davidson County Metropolitan Planning Commission on behalf of the Nashville Area MPO and the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation for Federal Transit Administration Section 5303, Program Transportation Planning Administration, Project Planning, and Transit Planning. Staff recommends approval. Item number 15 is a contract between the Nashville-Davidson County Metropolitan Planning Commission on behalf of the Nashville Area MPO and Cambridge Systematics, Inc. for professional service related to the conduct of regional freight and good movement study. Staff recommends approval. Item number 16 is a memorandum of agreement between the Nashville-Davidson County Metropolitan Planning Commission on behalf of the Nashville Area MPO and Smart Growth America for integration of public health into the transportation planning process, and staff recommends approval. And the last item is item 20, accept the director's report and approve administrative items. Staff recommends approval.
All right. Everyone has heard the explanation and that if we approve a motion to agree to these, then we will have no discussion following that motion. Is anyone in the audience who wanted to be heard on any of these and do not want to have it go off on the consent agenda? All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second to approve the consent agenda? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. So we've adopted that, which I believe leaves us with items 3 and 12. Is there any other item that we've missed that we'll be discussing? All right, let's give folks just a moment.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, the first item that we'll be hearing tonight is item 3, Moss Place. This is a request for concept plan approval to create 17 lots and open space. Staff recommends approval with conditions. This property is zoned R10 and AR2A. Surrounding zoning includes R10, RS10, and AR2A. So this case was deferred the past 2 meetings. At the last meeting, the case was deferred to allow for further investigation for possible graves on the site. An archaeological study was performed and did not detect any graves at that time. So here are the results of the study. Also, there's a recommendation that would address graves if they were found during the construction process, that they be monitored and they can be preserved or relocated under the supervision of an archaeologist. All right. So here we have the plan. The request is to subdivide 5 existing properties into 13 single-family lots, 4 duplex lots, and open space. Access is from a cul-de-sac that's coming off of Moss Spring Drive. Also, there's proposed a stub street that would provide future connection to Blue Water Way. Duplexes are shown on the plan with the gold stars. They're proposed on lots 4, 5, 7, and 17. Also, an existing residence is proposed to remain on lot 10. All lots do meet the minimum lot size for the R10 zoning district. Also, a small sinkhole has been identified on lot 5, which is this lot right here. The concept plan has been reviewed and approved by all agencies. Also, we have added a condition to further address this the sinkhole, and planning staff does plan to work with the applicant in order to find a solution for that. Here is a photo of the site. This is looking toward the site from the existing Blue Waterway. And in conclusion, staff recommends approval of the concept plan with conditions, as it is consistent with the subdivision regulations and zoning code. These are additional conditions that have been added since the case was first heard several meetings ago. The first two conditions were added by Public Works. The third condition addresses how graves will be handled, that they'll have to follow state law if those are found during construction. And the fourth condition addresses the sinkhole. All right, and in conclusion, staff recommends approval with conditions.
Thank you. This matter is open for, this matter is open for public hearing. We'll hear from the applicant first. Well, it's too late for that. I think we'll hear from the applicant first, and you have up to 10 minutes, and you can reserve up to 2 for rebuttal.
Mr. Vice Chairman and Commissioners, I'm Brad Scarborough here on behalf of Moss Springs LLC, the developer on this project. As staff did a great job in presenting this, and just to go back, we have a little bit of history on this. We first came at the May 8th meeting. It was deferred at the request of Councilwoman Johnson and several of the citizens in the community for a follow-up community meeting. We had that on May 19th, about a 2-hour meeting. We met with the people in the community and Councilwoman Johnson for about 2 hours and answered questions. We were back on the agenda on the 22nd, and there were some issues at that time that had been raised about some possible grave sites on the property. A deed from 1900 was presented that had some language of 3 grave sites on a 65-acre tract, of which this small acreage here was included within the 65-acre tract. A study was done, investigation was done. We worked with Metro Historical Commission. We retained an archaeologist, interviewed people who formerly lived at the property to identify a potential site where they thought the graves might have been located. We retained an archaeologist. He did an exploration, dug. They found no graves. Nevertheless, we are willing to go ahead and put the condition on that we'll continue to monitor for any grave sites that were discovered, that might be discovered during construction. Obviously, we want to preserve those, and state law, I think, would govern that. The plan, as you see, it's a subdivision concept plan. Moss Springs LLC, has builder, entitlements to. We are not here seeking a change of zoning. We are not here seeking any variances. We're just trying to get this subdivision concept plan approved. As staff mentioned, it's been approved by Stormwater and Public Works. She did mention that there were some duplex lots on this. Although we have the ability to do the duplexes on the duplex lots, we intend to go ahead and do horizontal property regime on those and put individual single-family dwellings. So with that, I also have Mr. Batson, the engineer here. He has been working on the issue with the small sinkhole, and as you can see on the plan there, it's at the lower portion of I can't remember which lot that is.
Lot 5.
Lot 5.
Right,
so with that, I'll just let Mr. Batson quickly speak to that. We have gotten approval from TDEC to go ahead and do a remediation on that very small sinkhole.
And I'll be here to answer any questions that come up about the sinkhole. We talked with Scotty Sorrells, and he went to the site. He's with the state, TDEC. He visited the site and said, yeah, you can remediate that. So.
Is that the conclusion of your
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman, if I could just reserve, I believe it's 2 minutes for any follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there members of the public here in support of this proposal who would like to speak? Are there members here who would like to speak in opposition to this? If so, please come forward. Hello, Council Lady Johnson. And let us hear from you.
Good afternoon, everyone. All of you esteemed commissioners, Vice Chair Clifton, thank you all for indulging me with my remarks today. We appreciate all of the work that the staff has done with this particular site. I do want to note that I did meet with the archaeologist and the director of the Historical Commission out on the site, and the archaeologist reviewed the area where it was guesstimated as to where the graves were. He has expressed, though, that that doesn't mean that they do not exist on the property at all. He just focused in on an area where the previous owner thought that the grave sites would be. And so I just wanted noted that all of the property was not reviewed or surveyed for grave sites. So there could be a possibility that they can turn up at a later date as they proceed. The letter that you have before you, there are basically some points that we as a community would like for you to consider, commissioners, in terms of conditions. We would like to require that a community meeting be required before any proposed development plans are approved, meaning the construction plan. That a condition by the Planning Commission that before any grading or excavation take place, that the developer provide a study and updated plans of the proposed development before any approvals are made. The developer had expressed at the meeting with us that there would be a homeowners association recorded as a guarantee. The community would like more information on this and what it would consist of. So we would like to request that you commissioners place a condition, add a condition that the covenants be recorded and a specific common area which is required when there is a homeowners association be outlined, and that this common area green space shown be clearly on the proposed development construction plan. And I know that that can't, I would think, not be a sinkhole because of safety concerns for children, et cetera. We also would ask that you condition the sinkhole with a phase 1 environmental to be completed before any construction plans are approved, so that that can satisfy the safety concerns, given that now, since we produced that map at the last meeting and that there is evidence of a sinkhole on one of the proposed properties, that that be a condition. And I'm gonna just kind of sum it up because of my time. The residents would also like the planning commissioners here that before any proposed construction plans are approved, that it clearly be defined with the community because of its impact. It has a significant impact in our community because we have older homes built in the early 70s, and this is a major project that we feel will have a great impact. I talked with some of the members of the Tennessee Department of Codes and Fire Marshal's office, and one of the things that came out that they said would mitigate any concerns around the blasting that we had shared at the last Planning Commission meeting is to have them to use rock hammers, and you all condition them that there's no blasting due to the age of the homes, and that they use, well, you recommend that they would use rock hammers and a seismograph to be set up by an independent company paid by the developer to be recorded weekly at the Fire Marshal's office in the State of Tennessee Department of Codes. You have everything outlined there. The bolded text are the conditions. I am going to provide a copy here to his attorney as well, and I would appreciate your consideration of adding those conditions. Thank you.
Go ahead and give us your name and address.
David Ellis, 3100 Blue Water Way. I want to add to the conditions also. In review of the neighborhood tax records, the over 100 homes we've looked at, the average square footage of each house is over 1,825 square feet. So we would like to see a minimum 1,825 square feet for the homes. Most of the houses are brick, so I'd like to see a requirement of 3/4 brick construction, 3 walls. I'd like to see 100% owner occupied at all times, no rentals. I don't know if you all have the authority or not, but we'd like to see a bond to cover the neighborhood homes from blasting and water damage. But I figured 44 homes at 150 apiece, at least. That's over $6 million, so we'd like to see a $5 million bond with a minimum of 10 years. We'd like to see the trees around the subdivision maintained around the acreage for aesthetics and sound abatement. 20-foot barrier around the perimeter of the property for a berm. And let's see, paved driveways, aggregate drives, sidewalks. I don't know if that's on that list that she gave you. Houses would be built on slabs only, therefore requiring, hopefully, no blasting. So I think a requirement of slab construction. I know this will probably be approved today, but we'd like to add those as conditions. I also like to see a show of hands on those who vote approve this plan. I know you have to have a majority. I'd like to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Come ahead. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Judy Goodrich, and I live at 3212 Blue Water Trace. I also want to see a bond for the blasting, and the concept plan shows a maybe exit and one entrance exit. In our meeting, he said there was 5 or 6, one of them being Blue Water Trace. That is where the major sinkhole is. If you pull out all those trees, you're going to destabilize the entire land around there. And if anybody goes out there and looks, there was a 200-year-old tree that fell several years ago. The roots are rotting and the ground is sinking. It's real evident even by your eye. I would like to see a specific plan on what he plans on doing that's going to affect all of our neighborhoods. We'd like to see a sales price within the $150,000 to $180,000 range to maintain our property values. And like everybody else has said, this is an old established neighborhood. We're already having foundation problems due to stormwater. I know there's a retaining pond. The retaining pond is put on a street where there's no sewers. What happens when it flows over? It's going to flood the neighborhood. So it's extremely important for us to have these surveys done to make sure that our property values are not affected. In turn, your property taxes are not affected. Because if my values go down, I'm going to dispute my property taxes. You have an outline of most of the conditions everybody likes, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Todd Engel, 613 Blue Water Drive, and we're here today to ask for your help. We are concerned for our neighborhood. We're concerned that if this development is allowed to proceed, it will be a negative for our neighborhood rather than a positive. We have a nice neighborhood now. Many of the homes have already been said were built in the 70s, brick homes. Many of us have lived there for 30 years or more. So we would ask that before this development is allowed to proceed, that many studies be conducted, as previously mentioned, such as stormwater, sinkholes, environmental impact, traffic and safety, and blasting. Right now, we are not confident that this new development and this builder will fulfill his obligations to our community. We would hope that any new development in any community would enhance that community. And without your help, we are deeply troubled that will not be the case in our community. So thank you for your help.
Thank you.
My name's Carol Edmonds. I live at 624 Blue Water Drive. And I'm talking about some of the same points that they did, but one of the main ones is about the concept plan shows only one entrance. Does this mean there's going to not be 5 or 6 access points that the developer said during construction and after the construction? We would like to know before about that, and if they can tell us, and we have another community meeting on that, because we don't want all these access points going everywhere through our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Hereford, and my address is 413 Owendale Drive, and I live in this community. I've lived there since 1974. I'm a retired Metro employee, having worked for the Metro Board of Education and the Davidson County Sheriff's Office. And I speak for my neighbors. I'm on an adjacent street, and I request this project have specific constrictions on it to conform to the existing neighborhood homes to protect our home values and enhance the neighborhood community. I want to quote an article from the Tennessee. We have a wonderful city here. Our city has been, GQ has referred to us as Nashville. CNN placed us in its 3rd slot of cities where startups thrive. Forbes included us in its list of cities that are getting smarter the fastest. Travel and Leisure ranks us as 3rd in its list of America's best cities. The New York Times headline reads, "Nashville's latest big hit could be the city itself." And this is just a sampling of the wonderful press our city has recently received with all the accolades. And because we Nashvillians are pretty awesome and live up to the hype, our city is sure to attract more people, more money, and more business. And so with this in mind, let's keep our neighborhood as it is. We have some wonderful folks here, and we're just trying to protect this neighborhood, the integrity of the neighborhood, and keep it thriving, and just continue to support our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Phil Hereford. I live at 413 Owendale Drive. My main concerns, I just am going to air 2 of them. One is I live on the East Fork of Hamilton Creek, which this property will be draining into once it's developed. This creek already has a problem getting out of its banks at this point, and just make sure there's protections in place that it will not increase the water flowing back up in that creek during the flooding season. And the other thing I would like to see you amend on this plan is I would like the possibility of you removing the possibility of any duplexes being built on this property. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See no other speakers. I'll declare the public ended. Yeah, it's up for that little rebuttal thing. You have up to 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Real briefly, as we mentioned before, and it's clear we've gotten approval from Metro Stormwater. They've reviewed this. Public Works has looked at this. I believe they spoke at one of the prior hearings that there will be minimal traffic effect. And in terms of the issue with the sinkhole, as we said, we've addressed that. We've even they put conditions on it where it will not be part of a lot. It will be open space. And in terms of homeowners associations and restrictions and any blasting and all those issues, those matters are governed by state law, and there are guidelines that have to be followed by every developer, and obviously we fully intend to follow the law and complete this project in accordance with the law. Thank you.
I do have one question before we close the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
We heard some testimony about points of access. Could you tell us what the story is on that?
Well,
from your point of view?
at the public hearing, there were a lot of questions about how many points of access are there currently to the property, and I believe it was mentioned that there were 4 or 5 different ways at this currently that you could access this property. Some of those being toward the top, I don't believe the top is north, but the top of the map off of Blue Water Way, that is an access point to the property. I believe Blue Water Trace over there is currently a way where somebody can access the property. And there was just some discussion at the meeting about currently how people are accessing this property, and that's what the discussion was. But it was clearly noted that once this development is done, the only access is going to be the one access off Moss Springs, and there'll be an entrance there, and things like that. So that was the issue about how it was currently being accessed, because there were several questions about people using the property to dump trash and people parking on the property, and there being no one there to keep them off of the property.
Fine. Thank you. I'll declare the public hearing closed and ask the members to make comments or raise questions for our staff or for Public Works and Water, if there are any such questions. Hunter, would you start us?
Well, I can appreciate the neighbors' concerns and appreciate you all coming out. As always, I often ask the staff to clarify our role as a commission on subdivisions, and as much for the public's sake as ours to remind us.
Right. The role of the Planning Commission with regard to subdivisions is, I would guess, more of a ministerial role. You're looking at it to make sure it complies with the subdivision regulations, the zoning code, as well as the other agencies that would review it. So.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Blackshear.
The only question I had regarded the entrance points, which the applicant already answered.
Commissioner Haynes.
No comments.
Okay. Commissioner Dalton.
No comments.
I think that leaves us with Commissioner LaQuire.
I just wanted to point out, I think I heard the developer in regards to whether somebody asked if there wouldn't be duplexes, and I think I heard the developer say that there was going to be a horizontal property regime on the 4 lots that were allowed to have duplexes, and he was going to do single-family detached there. Is that correct?
Yes, those are also considered duplexes.
I just wanted to, but they're going to be detached in this case with the horizontal property regime.
And this property is not located in the urban zoning overlay, so that is currently permitted. You're welcome.
Okay. As you know, Chairman McLean sees it as his role not to speak much when he's chairing, but of course that's just him and not me. I don't really have a lot of questions, but I did want to ask the staff the following. I know it's not a rezoning. I know it's a subdivision, and our review is more limited, and we have no control over some of what's been raised here. Such as whether it's rental or not and things like that. I also know that in spite of our best hopes in the past, blasting really does have a tendency to do a whole lot more than developers ever think it will. And we've all experienced that probably. And we also know that sometimes the water situation doesn't work out quite as easily as it sounds in this room. Do you, having heard the testimony, do you or other members of the staff think of any appropriate conditions that we might add to this that would be within our authority based on the kinds of things you've heard? And you or anyone?
We have gone through the stormwater pretty extensively. This is a concept approval, and they'll have to bring in their actual design drawings. We also have conditions on the sinkhole that we will be reviewing as it comes in on the final plan. The issue of blasting is one that I mean, as you point out, this commission's dealt with for years, and we don't have a better approach than to rely on the state requirements. at this time.
I think that blasting, even if blasting is permitted by state and local government, if it causes damages, there's remedies there in the courts. So there's that still. I'm wondering, before we see if there's a motion, if the proponents for this development, having seen the suggested extra conditions, were some of those items that you might want to consider?
Well, we have considered them, and we've listened, and we've had community meetings, and we just don't think any of the conditions are necessary and in this situation, and we would not be willing to go with conditions such as this bonding issue. And like you mentioned, the blasting, I represent some blasting contractors, and their largest expense is insurance, and they have to be insured. And anytime and they have to be monitored, they have to pay for a seismograph and a company to monitor blasting, and all that's required by state law. So we just don't think that any of these additional conditions would be necessary.
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
Thanks.
Members of the commission, do you have any other questions? Or is there a...
I just had one, since I noticed that somebody from Sewer and Water is here. Somebody raised a question about the detention pond. But just as an education for us, could you answer a question, please? If you could just help educate us when you're thinking of the size of the detention pond, probably, and the general area of the space and the new roofs and things, that there's a calculation on its size so that when there's no sewer drainage runoff, stormwater runoff drainage, then at peak flood times, sort of what happens, how you calculate that and how you might know what to expect, just so that they understand how this is calculated.
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. Steve Mitchell with Metro Stormwater. The detention calculations are actually based on existing conditions and proposed conditions. If you have a site such as one maybe in downtown that has a parking lot, just by meeting urban forestry requirements, if you convert a parking lot into a building, you'll be required to do trees and landscaping. So in a site near downtown, excuse me again, the amount of detention you may need could be nothing, because you're going to be going from completely paved to less paved. In a situation like this, when you don't have much impervious, you're going to be required, instead of zero detention, much more. So the amount of detention you're going to get is going to be the difference between what's existing and what's proposed. So what we would do is, we already know what's existing. What's proposed is we'll use the maximum that the zoning code allows for the zoning to determine what imperviousness is going to be over here. So we'll just use the maximum, whatever that is for the zoning, and that's what we'll use as the post conditions. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments or motions regarding this matter?
Move approval of staff's recommendation. Second.
Sure. Okay. Any discussion of that? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. No, sir? Thank you, though. That matter is approved, and we are now on number 12.
Good evening. Item 12 is United Electric Railway, the resub for Lot 81 and 82. Bear with me. Oh, I think we got it working now. Okay. All right, thank you for your patience. This is a request to request a final plat approval to create 3 lots on properties located at 1701 and 1703 Sevier Street. The properties are highlighted in red. To give you some background, we are located in East Nashville. Along the west side is South 17th Street, and just south of Sevier Street is Shelby Bottoms Park. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. The zoning is RS5. The policy is neighborhood general. In front of you is the proposed plat by the applicant. 1701 Sevier Street is labeled as number 1, and 1703 Sevier Street is labeled as number 3. The new lot that we're talking about is number 2, located directly behind 1701 Sevier Street. All lots meet the minimum standards of the RS5 zoning district. All lots have frontage on a public street. All review agencies have recommended approval, and there is no special policy in this area. Again, to wrap up, staff recommendation is to approve with conditions.
Before we go to the public hearing, let's go back to your last slide.
Sure.
So our earlier discussions earlier in this year about subdivision regulations and such, there's no question on this one in terms of the minimum standards. It's just a different issue here than we've faced in the other area.
Exactly. This meets all the minimum standards for the RS5 zoning district when it comes to square footage of the lot, frontage of the street, etc.
And comparability?
Comparability would not apply in neighborhood general.
Because it is neighborhood general and it doesn't apply.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing is now open. If the proponent would come forward and
Okay.
you have up to 10 minutes and you can reserve up to 2 for rebuttal.
Commissioners, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Josh Randolph. I live at 1628 Shelby Avenue, and I'm with Aerial Development Group, and I'm here representing the applicants. I want to thank Letitia for working this. She's been very helpful. Just kind of to mimic some of the things that she said, this does meet the requirements for the minimum lot size. All lots are greater than 5,000 square feet between the 3 lots. All government entities, Metro Codes, NES, Stormwater, Water Services, Public Works have all looked at this and approved it. Each of the 3 lots does have individual water and sanitary sewer, which is required and will be provided. This property is outside the floodplain, not in the FEMA flood maps, and the idea is to, like she said, to put a single-family home facing the park on 17th with the required setbacks in place. And there are no stormwater issues on the site. It is high up, and when you go down 17th, it's pretty steep and goes and flows down, and you probably get into a little bit of stormwater issues down at the bottom there, but on this site there aren't any, and will abide by any stormwater codes that are needed. But I ask that you follow staff recommendations and approve this subdivision, and I can hold 2 minutes back for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here today who wishes to speak in favor of this proposal? If y'all would any other folks come up behind, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Squires, and I'm the current owner of 1701 Sevier Street, and I support this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Audrey Latter, and I live at 1710 Eastside Avenue. Since this lot, the zoning requirements, it allows for the subdivision, and the lots are big enough. It faces the park, and I just think it's a great opportunity for a family to be able to enjoy, to live really close to downtown and have all those amenities of Shelby Park right there. I just think it's a really great opportunity for the subdivision, so I just ask that you approve it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? If you're here to speak against this proposal, please come forward at this time. And each person has up to 2 minutes unless they're representative of an organized group and are speaking for that group, in which case you get up to 5 minutes. So are you that person, or are you here for 2 minutes? You haven't been designated by a group to speak on behalf of a large group. Okay, thank you. Give us your name and address.
Susan Sears, 1627 Electric Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I appreciate the service that you give us. I watch you on TV. I think y'all do a great job. I would like for you to consider, I'm not for this proposal. I have lived in this neighborhood all my life. My father's people, we homesteaded this area. I know this land very well, and the house below it was my Uncle Ernest's land. This house is going to sit right up against a very narrow alley, a rock wall, and then, like he said, a very 50% grade downhill. It may not be a grade right there. It really is a grade. But what y'all need to know more than anything, this was a rock quarry. We bought this from the government back in the 40s. A lot of my family members. And we built with infill. So when I asked the gentleman that first spoke that wants to buy this property, he said, from Ariel, the engineers did not go down to see what was underneath that ground. And it's only about this much land. Mr. George Strawmat owned that whole plot from 1701 all the way to 1800. 17 to the end of 18th. And even when Cindy Wilson owned that house, Stephen Cindy Wilson, they tried to plant shrubs on the side of Sarah's. They're the reason the shrubs are there on the side of that fence. And it took them 7 times for that to take because there's no root system. My problem with all of this is the stormwater that I'm receiving. My lot is the stormwater system.
Okay. Thank you. Others opposed, please come forward. And if there's more than one, if y'all could come forward and stand behind each other, that would be helpful.
Hello, I'm Jane Thompson, and I live at 1432 Electric Avenue. Susan, father, uncle built our houses in 1954. In the area that we usually come is at the corner of 17th and Electric. And each time it rains, it's about maybe 3, 4, maybe more inches of water in the street. And it brings gravel and mud. And it stays there. You know, if it's raining constantly, it's like a little small stream that goes, I guess it comes down here from the park. And we've been coming this way. I moved there in '86, so it's been that way the whole time we've been here. Every time it rains, it's water, gravel, and mud. Sits right there. And each morning we walk the dog, we had to come through that little mud paddle because it stays there. They don't clean it up. It just stays there. It's mud and gravel. And it's been that way ever since we've been there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Brent Perry. I live at 1425 Electric Avenue. My concern is the storm water. I've lived on Electric Avenue since 1959. And as they say, the storm water has been a problem there. The houses that they're building now, there's not enough land. There's not near as much land as, if they tear an old house down, they building 3 houses on a piece of property now. So where's your water gonna go? The water's gotta go somewhere, and it's going downhill. So you're gonna put more concrete, more asphalt, more roofing. Eventually, where's your water gonna go? I guess everybody remembers the flood. So the water's gonna go somewhere. You gonna flood me out from up on top of the hill? That's the problem I've got. So these big houses that you're putting on
putting on a lot, you put 3 or 4 houses on a lot, there's nowhere for the water to go no more. There isn't no side left. All there is concrete, roofing. So, yeah, that's the problem I've got. Needs to be I don't know what the remedy is to it, but the water's gonna go downtown too. So, do you want to flood downtown Nashville again? That's what's gonna happen also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Mike Stewart, I'm a neighbor and a state representative. Just wanted to mention that we've received a lot of calls about this development in my office, not just from the people who've been here. And obviously there's a huge amount of concern about the stormwater. Apparently Metro has looked at the stormwater, and the assumption is that going forward, Metro is going to particularly scrutinize any development that occurs, and I guess as part of the building permit process, address stormwater building by building. I definitely appreciate Mr. Mishu talking with me, and I'm glad Metro is really committed to focusing on this part of the neighborhood and addressing these stormwater problems. I would say, though, stepping back more broadly, I mean, apparently this particular development technically complies with their zoning regulations. I guess because it's on a corner, you can split what has always been a single-family lot into 2. You couldn't do that on the other lots. That said, it's clearly changing the character of the neighborhood in a dramatic sense. I mean, you're taking 1 lot and you're turning it into 2, and I think what you're hearing from the neighborhood is more broad concerns about being beset by development and perhaps the need to have very great scrutiny of this development. I think here, apparently, other than the stormwater concerns, they may have a technical legal ability to split this lot and put up a new house, but obviously they need your approval, because in order to get the lot to the appropriate size, they need to get this additional piece from the additional lot. So I'd say 2 things. First of all, I think you should deny the request, simply because it really is changing the character of the neighborhood in a way that wasn't anticipated, I think, by the drafters of the zoning regulations. Obviously, we don't have an overlay. I think this situation highlights the need for one in this neighborhood. But with respect to the stormwater, I think you've now heard, 2-3 witnesses talking about the stormwater problems, and that's evidence that you can consider. So I think you should take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. No further testimony. We have 2 minutes for rebuttal for you.
Thank you. I appreciate the neighbors who have come out. I do agree that though this site is not that steep. Once you go down 17th, it does get relatively steep, and I do know that from every side up on 17th and then up on east side as well, those people down Electric are getting a lot of rain, and like they've mentioned, they've been getting that since they lived there. This project we'll have to abide by all stormwater regulations. When we go and pull the permits, we have to, the footprint that we build has to be a certain percent of on the lot, and so we'll have to abide by all those regulations. This neighborhood in general is all RS5, and so I don't foresee that this neighborhood will start to get too much more dense than this unless it is changed to an R zoning. So I think this neighborhood is in really good shape to keep its density and keep those stormwater issues to a minimum. But I think this is a great example of a great lot that will support a nice house. And I would ask, and I guess one more thing. She did say Ms. Sears had a comment about us not doing any boring tests. We have not done any boring tests to see what kind of ledge is under there. When we build a house on this, we may have to dig down a little bit in order to put the footings in, but it won't be anything major. There wouldn't be any blasting, and so it wouldn't be too big of a concern. But that's all. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. And it's all right with the commissioners. I guess I would like to ask that Mr. Mishu come address the key issue here, as we heard from the neighbors about the current situation and how this might impact that. It sounded like an unusual situation with what's under there.
Well, Hello, Commissioners. Again, Steve Mitchell with Metro Stormwater. Yeah, I did talk to Ms. Sears for quite some time out there earlier, and I've talked to some people in our director's office about this lot. Essentially, what they're doing is they're going from 2 lots to 3 lots, and in particular, that third lot that they're trying to create already has some imperviousness to it. So the difference between existing and proposed may not be that significant. Coupled by the size, coupled that this is only a 5,000 square foot lot, there's going to be this site, just like I mentioned at the last meeting about the previous thing, about the previous item, Moss Road, is with such a small site like this, there's little that you can do to make things worse, and there's little that you can do to make things much better. I did make a covenant with Ms. Sears that we were going to require a residential permit, like we do with all the other permits that we get. So we'll look at the roof drainage, we'll look at the driveways, we'll look at the grading, we'll look at all that. And in addition, I told her if they do decide to raise the other buildings, that we would flag the system and we require a more thorough grading permit after that.
I guess we've heard a lot of comments through the years about drainage and what increased problems there might be. The standard we operate under is that new construction that something like this cannot create more total drainage issues, or is it a different standard?
It's a little bit different that this project is only 5,000 square feet, and that's if they disturb the whole lot, it's 5,000 square feet. That's really not a lot. What triggers a major permit for us is 10,000 square foot. So if the disturbance is anticipated to be 10,000 square feet, which that's what we would anticipate if they raise one more building, we will. I've already told her that we would flag it and we would require additional items.
So your policy sort of would allow one by one.
Well, it did several years ago. However, in the last 3-4 years, we stopped allowing what we call piecemealing. So if a developer comes in and buys a lot and develops that lot, and he says, wow, it went so successful that the neighbor said, hey, why don't you buy ours? And then they buy theirs. Before we used to say, okay, this is one lot, this is one lot, this is one lot, and they would get the permits. Now we don't allow the piecemealing. If they get the one lot, like over here, that's 5,000 square feet, that's under the full grading permit threshold, we will still require our site plan before we issue a building permit. But if they decide to raise the second one, we would consider it a piecemealing, and we would stop them right away and say they need to make the whole site in compliance again.
Okay, so they can't just take little bites and do it in a large area and have a large cumulative effect without serious review.
Exactly. What we have done is we have asked people to tell us whether the structures that are already remaining are going to be existing or to be demolished. If they say demolished, we automatically know that, hey, you're going to need a full-blown permit. If they say it's going to be existing, then what we do is we take the plat, and as soon as it's subdivided, we flag all the other parcels.
So in this case, you asked and they said what?
They added the note saying that the structure are to remain. And if they are not to remain, if they come in for a demolition permit later, it will already be flagged.
Or anyone else comes in?
Anybody else.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't matter if it's aerial development or whether they say, you know what, I'm going to try to beat the system. I'm going to sell it to my sister. It's not going to matter to us. We're going to go ahead and the flag that we have is going to sit on the parcel itself.
Okay. Before Mr. Mishu sits down, any other questions for him before we go forward?
I have one. Just the comment that it was built on infill. Does that, in the water issues, does that create an instability if a bigger project is built there? Or is that something that gets pursued and dealt with the deeper they get into the development of the project plans?
Well, it's rather complicated, but our regulation, as part of the exemption criteria, says that any fill material that they use has to be inert materials. So, they could use soil, they could use rock, they could use actually broken up concrete, provided that the rebar is removed. But if it's already existing there, it would be a codes issue when they review the foundation. Thank you.
Commissioner Blackshear?
No comments.
Thank you, Mr. Michoud, for clarifying that. I think that puts my concerns at ease on the stormwater. I respect and appreciate the neighbors' concerns. Obviously, you've been dealing with some water issues for some time and don't want to see it get any worse. With respect to the character of the neighborhood, there are actually historic examples, and this comes up at the Historic Commission quite a bit. There's actually historic examples throughout East Nashville where on a corner lot where the rear portion of the lot was subdivided or originally platted that way and has a second home behind it. In fact, personally, I think it's one of the most interesting things you find in the neighborhood, sort of surprising when you come upon it, but there's some really neat places in the neighborhood that are a bit unusual and sort of part of the unique character of the neighborhood. So I think this is a good opportunity for that, and as a commission that's supported infill, I think it's an appropriate place for it.
Commissioner Haynes?
No comments.
Commissioner Dalton?
No comments.
Commissioner LaQuire?
Yeah, I tend to be interested in the concept, and the only thing one other thing I think that didn't get brought up, but I noticed in the report is that the access to the new lot would be from the alley, correct? There's not a new cut into 17th, right?
Correct. The access will come off the alley, so not a new cut onto 17th Street.
Thanks.
Commissioner?
Sorry, I did have a note here from my review just related to that. There's a existing gravel drive on Lot 1 that would appear to be located within those setbacks, and it states in the staff review that no parking shall be allowed in the front setback for all parcels. Would that gravel drive be allowed to remain?
That one certainly would. If there was another one that was not indicated on this site plan that was coming from Sevier Street, so we wanted to limit it to one or the other. So they could be able to park in those setbacks, just only one of them.
So one of the, and only Lot 1?
And only Lot 1, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Comments, motions?
I do have a follow-up question to what I just asked, and then I'll make a motion. Should Lot 1 be redeveloped? By right, they could come in, tear down the house, build a new home. Could we have a condition within the subdivision that would require, in that instance, that the parking be located outside of the setback? Is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So in other words, the intent is to keep the existing home there. While I don't like the parking lot right on the corner, it might be more to ask them for them to move it with an existing home there. But should they come in and redevelop, I think it would be a good opportunity to get that parking off of the corner.
Right. And we can identify that either parallel to Lot 3 or against in the rear to Lot 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the parking would be back on.
So I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation. And I see that staff recommendation is to defer, but that...
we proceed.
Okay, we proceed.
Defer unless they receive certain information.
Okay. To approve staff recommendation of approval with the condition that with new construction on any of these 3 parcels, that parking is required to be within the set or behind the setback.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, vote no.
No.
All right. Motion passes. We move to the next item of business, which is?
Next item would be the election of officers report.
You have the report?
Of the nomination.
From the nominating committee?
Yes, I do.
Good.
So the nominating committee, which consisted of Jeff, myself, and Councilman Hunt, we consulted with each other, and after, I think, Councilman Hunt consulted with you, Vice Chairman, who was our illustrious current Vice Chairman, we have decided to nominate Commissioner Atkins as the new Vice Chair to follow in your footsteps and to nominate Chairman McLean to continue on as Chair.
We discussed this last meeting, didn't we? We just didn't vote on it.
Well, it wasn't on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, and the yard signs weren't up or anything?
Right, correct.
Okay. Well, you've heard the report. Is there a motion to accept the nominating committee report?
Second. Well, neither one of those nominees are here. I assume that they're willing to accept these positions.
I believe that's the case. It'll be a nice surprise for them when they get back. It's kind of an irony. But. All right, all in favor of the nominating committee report, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, vote no.
The commission also needs to select a park representative, and it's unless there's some interest of someone here, I think Commissioner Atkins indicated a willingness to be that person, but there could be opposition here, and he's not here to campaign, but I would throw that out there if there's someone that wants to make that motion.
No opposition.
The Parks Commission is also without compensation, isn't it?
It's double the current salary.
That's right. So
I'm just curious, is that, once the commission elects that representative, is that then a mayoral appointment?
No, the historic preservation is a mayoral appointment from the planning commission. This is a choice from the planning. It has to be a planning commission, but it's a choice of the planning commission.
Okay. I'll move that we elect Commissioner Atkins as the representative for parks.
all those in favor, vote aye. Aye. Opposed, vote no. Good. Now, where does that leave us? Mr. Bernhardt?
Well, is there a historic report?
Oh, yes.
Parks report. Then it's director's report. I have provided you a director's report. As Greg went over, beginning this weekend, it's going to be an extremely, we're shifting dramatically the direction of Nashville Next into making decisions with the community. There will be a number of activities. There's some 35 scheduled over the next 3 months. The first one will be several of them, but we will also have a community discussion on economic development and housing and gentrification also this month. I would strongly encourage each of the Planning Commission members to try and attend one of the lounges so that you get a sense of what that is, because beginning in the fall, we'll be working with the preferred alternative and working with the communities in updating the community plans. All that will be coming to you in the winter or early spring. So this is the rubber meets the road portion of the process. So.
I would like to encourage all the commissioners to attend the meeting, and then also, as we on the steering committee have been doing, please help us be advocates to get more people in the community to understand the importance of this phase, and to get your chain letter of people to attend these meetings, because it's really going to make a difference. And we don't want anybody to wake up in the fall and say, whoa, what happened? That's not what I wanted. We want to be sure their voice gets in now. The time is nigh. Thank you.
And I don't know if it's always been evident to the community that when we adopt a general plan, it's final. It doesn't necessarily go to the council. By state law, this commission adopts that plan, so it's pretty important for people who want input to give it now and not just assume they can give it later. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so now we're moving to, because we have no historic zoning report. or parks or, well, I just hate to go home this early. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, please go home. There.